God is good, and when MMORPGs were a new phenomenon, we were all just amazed that we could play with other real people online. There was a certain mystical magic surrounding games like EverQuest upon launch, and we were all able to look past certain clunky or broken elements because we simply couldn't believe that the technology could allow us to interact with the persistent world in real time with thousands of other people. Pantheon Rise of the Fallen is creating an MMORPG where they want to bring the spirit of the old school MMOs back, but with modern features. But if it were just that simple, wouldn't we already have it? And how can that be possible with playing online not really being anything new or even necessarily exciting anymore? With people min-maxing, data mining, online guides, are we at an age where this simply isn't possible for a new MMORPG to pull off? Today, I want to discuss why and how Pantheon Rise of the Fallen absolutely is pulling off this mystical magic of yesteryear, but not in the simple ways it was done in the past. The simple truth is that the tricks EverQuest did in 1999 to astound the world over will not work today with the new release. So, Visionary Realms has gotten very creative with how to make your jaw drop and the saliva flow as you are pulled from your body and inserted into their digital world for hours on end. And at this point, these features are so baked into the recipe that they are now part of the game's DNA, resulting in everything else that gets layered on top to be affected by that genetical foundation. Before I kick off, don't forget to drop me a like to help combat the YouTube algorithm, and if you are new here and interested in MMORPGs or RPG content, please hit the subscribe button. Now, Pantheon Rise of the Fallen is being made to challenge you, and I don't mean when you get to endgame. I don't mean for special hard mode or epic level challenges for the elite. I mean the entire journey will need some thought and care. This doesn't mean you can't go out and kill some green mobs solo. This doesn't mean you will break a keyboard every time you play, most likely. But what it does mean is things will not always work the same. You will have to play around with what abilities you have out to access. You will get surprises in combat as the mob calls in some friends or even tricks you in some ways, such as pushing your group into a trap. The combat just isn't a cookie cutter situation to make you feel powerful. There will certainly be moments where your intellect outmaneuvers the foe and you will feel wonderful. You will actually feel even better than you would in a generic scenario, but the overall moments and course of combat will ebb and flow, and you will be paying attention to positioning, targeting, and ability usage at the right time for the right scenario. And these situations happen from level 1 all the way to max. And it's not just about the mobs either. The world itself will challenge you. Even the very environments fight back at times. You will fight the challenges of extreme weather conditions, or even environments that are supernatural, or cause certain abilities to be more powerful or to be completely useless. Pantheon is taking the word PvE quite literally, in that it is you versus the environment. And also the sense of urgency and the threat of death is real in Pantheon, as the death penalty really hurts. You do not want to drop your HP to 0. It can be devastating. This changes your behavior to survive, even when the situation takes a turn for the worse. This is a big reason that in most MMOs, the difficulty finally hits during endgame. It's not just that things take more attention, it's also that loss of progress. For example, in insert MMO here, you and your party made it to phase 3 of the raid boss and things are getting hairy. Your heartbeat picks up, a bit of sweat begins to pool in your armpits, and you either focus and use your class to its 100%, or you get nervous and fall to shambles. And it's because you know you lose the progress of phase 1 and 2. There is a similar feel to all things in Pantheon, because you could lose some of the progress to level. You could possibly lose some items in your inventory. Death just freaking stings. And this is a necessary component to making the world feel dangerous, to feel good when you conquer a goal or objective. And with those risks comes reward, not just in the feeling that you did it, but it could be in the loot, it could be in discovering a new area of a dungeon, or it could be a new perception area, or any number of things. Bringing back the danger is done very differently than it was in 1999, but I hope you can see that it is still there, just in a more modern sense. Creatures, though, in Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, I mean, they can spawn with a multitude of personalities or dispositions, meaning they go to combat differently depending on which one they are. and which one they are is random at a lot of the times. So this means that your combat awareness must be ready for anything, regardless of how many times you've done this exact pull in this exact area. They might start running when their HP hits 50%. They might immediately grab nearby friends. They might go straight for the one casting the healing magic. They might try to silence your wizard. They might charm your tank. The excitement is always there, which means revisiting old content to help a guildie or because you rolled another alt is always going to be an experience you can't count on being the same. This was created as part of Brad McQuaid's solution to not having a Groundhog Day effect when you revisit the same areas, and is shaping up extremely nice, putting every moment of Pantheon's encounters into a Dungeons and Dragons anything can happen kind of stratosphere. Of course, the players have a mighty weapon to fight back against these varying challenges as well, in the form of class identity and interdependencies. But as you can see, things are still just as dangerous when fighting mobs as they were in old school MMOs, just in a new modern way. Real quick before we continue, I want to give a major shout out to the members of Napalm. Thanks to their contributions, I can get the equipment and gear that I need to keep this channel ticking, covering MMOs, RPGs, and of course, puppets. If you're interested in becoming a member of Napalm, please click the join button down below. It would be greatly appreciated. And a very special major shout out to the Lords of Napalm, Bounty Code, We Toke Bitcoins, Jared Woodhouse, Daimlos, and Farthest Reach. Thank you for your highest tier membership. Now onto the video. Every class has an identity, and that sets them apart from the other classes, even when the other classes are in the same role. Each tank, for example, plays completely different from one another, with their own strengths and weaknesses. Dire Lords are great against casters, but struggle more with physical attacks. Warriors excel at physical attacks, but struggle with casters. Paladins can handle both moderately well, but have extra survivability with their other abilities. None of these three feel the same, nor do they play the same. The warrior has to juggle shield commands. The Dire Lord is going to be juggling disease spreads for multiple targets. Paladin is going to have to juggle abilities to heal or reflect damage or burn enemies with celestial flames. Switching to an alt even within the same role will need adjustment in the way you think about doing that role's task. Also, the classes work together in different ways, depending on what classes are in the party, but since they all have their weaknesses, they must depend on another class to help fill in that gap. A warrior will need better crowd control when dealing with casters, or a paladin might get away with less healing, but need better DPS before he runs out of mana. And all of these things are cohesive and part of the genetics of what makes Pantheon feel like an old school MMO when you are playing your ideal class. You are great at XYZ, you need to depend on others for ABC. This brings back that spirit of MMOs of yesteryear when we weren't all Rambo running out tagging the dungeon's first entire wing and then AoEing them down. Speaking of classes, we have all gotten comfortable over the years with the Trinity system: tank, healer, DPS. Pantheon is bringing back an absolute classic of a role in a big way: crowd control and support. These classes, such as the Enchanter, focus on being able to hold enemies down and in place so the group can focus and not get overwhelmed. It's not the only trick in their arsenal, but it's the general idea. Pantheon Rise isn't the type of game where you will be pulling a large group of mobs together in a tight little area and then just nuking them all dead. It's more of a strategic pulls, and then when there are uh-ohs, and there will be plenty of uh-ohs, the crowd control class will deal with the extras by monitoring that they are rooted or mezzed. Now they have their own challenges in Pantheon as well though, as these mobs can resist, they can break free, or even their own allies can break them free, or in the very extremely not likely, I'm being sarcastic, event that a group member might attack the wrong target and set them free. And in some cases, they may be able to temporarily have one of the enemies turn to attack their own. The addition of a fourth in the class roles is baked into the Pantheon combat system and becomes a key identifier in giving you those old school MMO vibes in a modern MMORPG. Now, the worlds of older MMOs always felt so mysterious, so interesting and worthy of being explored and conquered. Much of that was just because of the wonder of a persistent online digital place where so many could interact at once. Since that is no longer a big wow factor in the MMO space, Pantheon Rise has the perception system. This can be looked at much like a dungeon master is telling or describing something to you, like a whisper in your head that might make you investigate further, or at the very least pique your interest in what is going on or what might be going on. These can lead you to places you may not have went otherwise, and as you begin to get comfortable with it, it begins changing your behaviors. It makes you start looking for something to click, a torch that might move to reveal a hidden passageway, a key tucked under a barrel, or to find out what lies behind that overgrown hut in the middle of the forest. It encourages exploration and discovery, and since Joppa and team have tucked these away in every nook and cranny of the world, it is guaranteed we will be finding new ones for years to come. What this does is it creates this sense of wonder and amazement, this sense of I might be the first to figure this out, and makes absolutely every little detail in the world be more than simple decoration. Common these days is fluff to make areas look different, but at the end of the day, that's all they are, decorations. Pantheon is making everything matter in the environments by putting these perception dings all around the world. And let me tell you, the way you find these sometimes will be based on things like your race, your class, other things you've done, inventory items you have on you, your level at perception, and so much more, that this isn't just a go here and touch that kind of experience. So for those that think people will figure these all out and they'll be on the internet and it will lose its magic, consider how difficult it would be to be the exact race, class, inventory, perception level, and more to even see some of these. And if you can imagine it, it becomes very clear how the mystery of the world and the lore and the organic type of storytelling that was so good back in the old school MMO days will be making a triumphant return using this new system in Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. And speaking of exploring, until you've experienced what it is like to look around and consider the verticality of exploration, knowing that you can climb virtually any surface, I tell you, you don't know the power it puts at your fingertips. I know we have all talked climbing to death, but there is a reason that the testers and developers are so excited about this feature, and that's that it changes everything. It also gives the developers more tools to tuck away cool secrets, and it gives us something else to skill up and get accustomed to. The wonder and excitement of playing an MMO and knowing you have this extra tool to help you explore is completely exhilarating, and truly something that has to be experienced to completely understand and respect. This brings back the feeling of I can do anything, or anything is possible, and does bring back the old school spirit of MMOs and exploration. Hands down, if you aren't hyped about climbing, you soon will be. Pantheon Rise of the Fallen is joining the short list of MMOs that are open worlds without zone lines separating the overworld. I'm sure we've all played a game like this, and that sense of freedom is unparalleled. Also, because of the way the human mind works, open worlds encourage the distraction phenomenon. When we have zones, we can kind of compartment tasks per zone. But when we have a sprawling open world, we are more likely to say, oh look, a spider cave, and suddenly be off on a side adventure. And due to the perception system, this little side adventure may become a full-on day or even week-long quest of rabbit holes to uncover. Although many of the old school MMOs were zone-based at that time, the zones were huge, and for that period of time, they felt open world. Pantheon Rise of the Fallen doesn't have to fake it or trick us. We really wouldn't fall for it these days anyway, because it truly is a wide open world for us to conquer and explore. Mix in the other topics we have already discussed, mob dispositions, danger, death penalty, climbing, perception, and you suddenly have a recipe for endless adventure. And endless adventure was exactly what we signed up for in old school MMORPGs. Pantheon Rise of the Fallen is being built from the ground up to be slap full of content, not content at endgame only, not keeping you invested with gimmicks and promotions. I mean actual content from beginning to end. So many places to see, and each place full of secrets, rabbit holes, and adventure. You will treasure your level 5 adventures just as much as your level 50 ones. And I believe in many cases, you enjoy your journey more than the destination, which breeds alts, which keeps the early content alive. Not to mention that since the classes are so inherently different, starting over will always feel fresh and nostalgic, but wildly drastically different than the time before. Also, because of dispositions changing the events and the adventures you go on, coupled with the fact that chances are when you start over, you will end up visiting new places that are level appropriate than the time before, there is a major focus on content for the journey as you level up, and I've demonstrated much of it during the talks of this video. But to be honest, everything I've talked about is still very tame in comparison to what will be readily playable and ready for consumption by the time we reach launch. Everything I've discussed has been the the NDA appropriate stuff that we really already knew. The point was to get you to understand that Pantheon is bringing back the feeling of the old school MMO that made you fall in love with this genre, but in all new ways. These aren't the same old dog and pony tricks, because those tricks would not work on us anymore. Instead, we are looking at the same feeling, but with new tricks to make it work for a modern and an old school, and simply, to be honest, jaded audience. And this is what makes me most excited about Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. It's the way it makes me feel. It's the way it makes me play. It's the addictive combination of things that makes me never want to log out, to always want to dive back in, because the world of Terminus is the most lively, most dangerous, and most rewarding digital world I have ever been in. And I simply want more, and there is no end to the hunger they have given me. So hats off to Visionary Realms, to Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, as they push toward alpha, and so many more of you will get to experience this magical journey and help shape it into our future MMO home. A final world for us to retire on and spend all of our free time and energy enjoying its endless adventures for decades to come. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please drop me a like. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. And if you are new here, please consider subscribing. And if you would like to help support the growth of this channel, please consider clicking the join button down below to become a member of Napalm. And until next time, my friends, God bless and happy gaming.